So look, hello and welcome to the wonderful W1 Curates and the Walthamstow Rock and Roll Book Club, although obviously we're not in Walthamstow. Can we cheer them? Yay! Today is the publication day of Arthur Baker's amazing memoir, Looking for the Perfect Beat. There it is.
Thank you, Miranda. You've got a lot of energy, you know?
I have,
You're really energetic.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited.
Cool.
I've got my introduction. I'm going to read my introduction before we chat. Is that okay? Yeah, come on.
Go right
I'll
ahead.
pick you up. All right. Okay. I know you know all this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. All right. Arthur, a producer, artist, restaurateur, catalyst, all-round legend, has been working in music for 50 years. As a producer, he's responsible for some of the most pioneering and influential dance and pop music ever made. From Planet Rock to Sun City to Confusion to Dancing in the Dark, Arthur has essentially shaped the sound of what we hear today. Plus, he's completely brilliant to hang out with. So, I'd like to say welcome to the fantastic Arthur Baker.
Thank you. Can I thank a few people first? Can I thank a few people?
Sure, go ahead.
I want to thank Tony Higgins, who introduced me to Dan Papps somewhere, and that's how I got the book deal, and Luke Bainbridge, who helped me with the book. And I was going to thank my wife and my daughter, but they're obviously late. So I'll thank my sister-in-law, who's sitting right there. So, but yeah, my daughter will run up to the front and make a scene when she gets it.
That's allowed, I think. Okay, so look, this is a great book. You didn't write it during COVID, which is good. You just wrote it because you decided to write it. It obviously starts at the beginning and it goes all the way through. I just wanted to touch on the beginning, meaning that the environment that you grew up with very loving family, but it's not, and it's not just you, it's not a particularly musical environment. Music was actually almost scarce at that time, wasn't it?
Well, actually, no.
But what I want to say, like, there's a scarcity, but it's the people that are interested are really interested in it. I'm going to talk about your first gig in a minute.
No, but the thing was, my family, my mother's first cousin was Sid Raymond, who actually wrote the Girl Watches theme song and Smile, You're on Candid Camera, and did the orchestrations for West Side Story. So my mother always sang. She loved singing, but my dad couldn't hold it. But I'm just saying that there was that in the background.
Yeah.
We were told about this mythical relative who did the Girl Watches theme song, which Smile, You're on Candid Camera, Patty Duke. I mean, this is like mid-60s before I really was into music, but that was part of it.
It's there in your family, but like in terms of finding music for yourself, it's actually quite hard to find at that time, isn't it?
Well, you turn on the AM radio and you would hear stuff like that I just mentioned, and then obviously at one point would become Roy Orbison, and then the Beatles, and the British Invasion and Motown. So I was aware of that, but until like Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones, 69, everything changed. 68, 69.
And your first gig, so the first gig that you go to, you're 14, is kind of unbelievable. Like, do you want to say you played?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, MC5, and Johnny Winter. And Johnny Winter was my actually favorite of the three bands. I went to see Zeppelin with Johnny Winter during his gig. There was a fight between two motorcycle gangs. And one guy grabbed the crutch of the guy from the other gang and was beating him over the head, blood spurting everywhere. First gig, it's all been downhill. Really, gig-wise, that was probably the best gig.
You were hooked. So you were like, okay, this is music. I'm interested in music, and you kind of found a way to make it part of your life. It wasn't like something that you knew you could like work in or anything. It's just something that you were really interested in, wasn't it?
Yeah, not right away. In the beginning, I wanted to play for the Celtics. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. But literally, once I started listening and getting into music, there was one moment I said I'd like to make music. But that was when I started listening to more, black music, more disco and funk, and that's what gave me the inspiration to want to make records, because I noticed that most of the producers of those records, be it Gamble and Huff or Motown or Norman Whitfield, they were writing the songs.
Yeah.
Now, for some crazy reason, I thought, oh yeah, I could write songs too, but no training, no musical talent, but I thought, yeah, I heard songs in my head, so I started humming them into a cassette player and just thought, yeah, I can start writing songs and become Gamble and Huff.
And then,
pretty crazy looking back,
I know, I think it's really
pretty
interesting.
nuts.
It's like an idea that you
Yeah.
have, and you just
Yeah.
follow that idea all the way through.
Yeah.
And there's a bit when you go to kind of university or college, and you do a production course.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a college that had the first electronic music course in America, a guy named Everett Hafner, and it was pretty mad because he had like all these synthesizers, and I mean, I had no real talent at that point, but it was just amazing to have the access to just hearing those sounds,
Yeah.
But I was more, at that point I wanted to make dance records, even at that point I thought 73, 74, even before disco blew up, I thought, I wanted to make dance records.
And also you make the point, which is like you wanted to make dance records, and also that's almost where you could go, meaning that the bands wrote their own songs. So like say if they go through the Beatles kind of way of doing things,
Right.
They're writing their own songs and they're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So but with dance music it's freer somehow.
Well, dance music was a sort of a producer's medium, The producer-songwriter would sort of, even a group like The Temptations, they didn't write any of their songs. The OJs, Harold Melvin, Blue Notes, they didn't write their songs. Gamble and Huff wrote them, and they teach them the song, and they put the arrangements behind. It's crazy when I talk about thinking I could do that,
But you did think it, and
but
you
I
can.
didn't. But I just sort of, thinking about it, it's sort of
Yeah.
a little nuts.
It's a kind of confidence, isn't it, that you don't.
Madness, confidence.
Quite close. They're quite close. In the book, there's certain points where you say maybe what qualities are needed to be a producer, and one of the things that you say at a certain point is that you feel like you should become a member of the group that you're producing.
Well, I felt that way because
Yeah.
I didn't really want to produce groups. I wanted to write songs and have people singers sing them. And it was different than producing a band. You've got 4 or 5 people. You have to deal with their songs and their symptoms. And basically it was sort of more of a means to an end, because if I had been a singer, I would have just done my own shit, right? But I wasn't, so I had to find singers to sing the songs for me,
Yeah.
which is what I did. But when you get into the idea of producing a band, you've got, like, as I said, you got to be a shrink. You got to really listen to people. Wasn't that interested in that. No, because and then the drummer wants the drums up higher and the bass one, So it's not an easy gig,
Yeah.
Really, and then you have to like the material.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do an album and there's 15 songs and maybe you'll like 3 or 4, and then you have to actually work on things you don't like.
Yeah.
Which I never liked that, and that's why I didn't do a lot of albums.
Yeah. But if you think about that first, so you've got that idea, you think, okay, I want to make the songs. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Did you have any? We mentioned before, just when we were talking before, the idea of the hustle, and I want to get onto that before in a little bit. But did you have a kind of route? Did you think to yourself, this is how I can do it? Because
No plan.
yeah.
None. There was no plan, really. I just went with things as they came about.
Yeah, but one of the things it seems to me that you had at the time was you had really good taste. So you would end up doing things like, you would play records, you would hang out in different record shops, you would talk to people. It's almost like your taste was the way that you.
Well, I was open with my musical taste, so I wasn't really, I could listen to anything and go, I'd find something good about whatever I liked, and usually it was a beat. It was usually a groove or a beat. And you know, when I look back to the rock records I've always loved, most of them have like a dance beat or something in there, funk, that there's some funk, even with all the rock, whether it's Little Feat or the Allman Brothers, or what, they were all sort of funky. And the bottom end was funky on those records. So I always was attracted to that music in rock, and then in soul and funk it was already there. So, you know.
Yeah. And you end up, I mean, lots of people would think of you as a kind of working in New York, but you don't get there in the beginning, do you? You work outside New York.
No, I was an outsider and who would go to New York
yeah.
with my cassettes and my cassettes that you see on the walls.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when I go there, I was, as you were saying, a hustle, 100% hustling. You had it. No one was going to come looking for you. You had to go and sell what you were doing. And I would go to like somewhere like Record World, Nelson George, who we've been friends for probably 40 years now. I'd go with him with my new productions, and he was literally cool. He was like, you know, he'd listen. You know, I don't know how I talked my way into it, but I did. And then one day I brought him Planet Rock, and he was like, what the fuck? This kid had such shitty records, and now, you know. But you know, it was sort of, the point is, I met a lot of great people who always had an open door for me.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it was lucky or if it was just I had a good gift of the gab, you know, that I could talk my way in, and I knew enough about the music. I think that was the other thing. I knew music pretty well. I was a bad DJ, but I had good taste. No, a horrible DJ.
Really?
But yeah, I was. But the point is, I could hang out with the good DJs, and they accepted me because what plan I did have was I wanted to produce records. I didn't want to be a DJ. That was like a secondary thing, you know, to get to making your own records.
And what was the point where you felt like, okay, yeah, I can do it? I mean, we're going to use some of your music as a kind of illustration, but was there a particular point where you thought, okay, yes, I've got it, I know what I'm doing, this is working?
Well, you know, the first record I did was called Losing You by the Hearts of Stone. And I got a record deal with it in Canada, and a few of the DJs in New York played it, and it got listed in like the Billboard DJ chart. So I mean, to me, that was like that success, because you made a record, DJs are actually playing it. Then I did something called Kind of Life by North End.
Yeah.
That was another one. But then I did the one that really sort of not only taught me how you can get screwed in the record business, but also that my taste and my instincts were really good, was I Don't Need No Music.
Okay, we are going to play it. We're going to play like a little bit of full record. We're going to play this one. So this is a little bit of I Don't Need No Music by
TJM.
Okay, so that is a completely great record, and you describe how you get it together in the book. You know, you literally use your bar mitzvah money, you get money from your relatives, you know, in order to get the kind of...
My dad believed it. He believed in me. He thought I was crazy, but he did sort of believe in me in some way, and he helped. He got some of his friends to invest. It's just, when I look at the contract, it was really, I mean, the whole thing was so not together, you know. And then I made, you know, instead of finishing out ADHD, I should have known then. Literally, instead of making like 2 tracks or 3 and finishing them, I made 12 tracks and didn't finish them because I had no money. So basically, this guy, Jerry Moulton, came through the studio, heard the music, and he was the brother of Tom Moulton, who was like a famous remixer at the time. And they bought the music, but they said that they were going to re-record everything. They just wanted the tape so that they could listen to it. Mm. And then next thing I know, the album came out, and it was all my production, and I got no credit, no points, just publishing on it.
Yeah.
But,
it was
but then it came out, and it was on Casablanca Records, which was the big disco label, and Larry Levan played that a lot in the Paradise Garage, and so it was literally, that made me think, yeah, you could do it, but watch out for people who you deal with.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you put in the book, you say, like, it made you learn that you have to get a credit.
Yeah, I mean, credit is everything in a record. The points in the beginning, you may not make the money, but, I didn't have the credit. I did produce the record, and he mixed it, and he did a great job mixing, but...
Yeah, but then took the production...
Yeah, I didn't get credit for that.
Yeah, and did you feel like, I mean, you must have been good, but I mean, did you feel like, okay...
Well, they paid me, I got out of debt, and the record came out. So, I wasn't gutted, but, it didn't make me stop doing it. It made me more incentivized to keep doing it. And
you said that it was that Larry Levan played. It's obviously that quite a lot in the kind of earlier sections of the book. You're making music and then you're taking it to DJs, whether it's him or whether it's Jelly Bean or people like that. And I wanted to just talk a bit about that, about the relationship between making music and then instantly taking it to the club, because that's fantastic.
If you have that opportunity, you got to do it. I was lucky that I would become friends with DJs, and they would play the records. I mean, if I was giving them shitty records, they would stop playing. But with Jelly Bean, that was we used that as a test ground for all the electro records that I was doing. I'd bring it in, as you see in Confusion. I mean, the Confusion video really captured that entire, time, because it was like that. I'd bring the tape in, but not in the beginning. I mean, in the beginning I had to have a hit, and then Jelly Bean and I became friends, and he would play whatever I brought in, really.
Yeah. So again, it's like quality, but also like being able to make the connections with people, being friendly and...
Totally. I became friends with all really good DJs.
Yeah.
Since, as I said, I was a shitty DJ, so I wasn't, but the thing was, I wasn't competing with them. I never DJ'd in New York. They didn't see me, they knew I was a DJ in Boston. Theoretically, I was, but they didn't. No one ever saw me DJ.
Oh, that's quite good, the myth.
That was good that they happened.
He's amazing.
They missed nothing.
Okay, look, obviously we're going to play a couple more of your tracks. I want us to play a kind of, I suppose, the one that everybody knows very well, which is Planet Rock. But before we get to it, I just wanted to, there's a really interesting part in the book where you're saying, okay, the first time you hear, I suppose, this type of music, you kind of think, it's all right. You're kind of like, it's okay, I'm not sure if it is the future, just,
Well, I was in the park and I heard someone talking over a record, Joe Bataan, who I was working with, the Latin salsa artist, basically. We were going to make a disco record together, and he said, "Oh, you got to come up to the Bronx and see these guys are talking over records. Someone's going to make $1 million, right?" And so he convinced me to get up there, and I went and I heard people, and I was like, "Okay, I sort of get it. I know the music they're talking over, rapping over." But yeah, I mean, that was before there was a rap record out there. This was literally, there hadn't been Rapper's Delight or anything, or Curtis Blow. Yeah. So this was pre-rap being recorded. Because then he went in on the project we were doing, and he did a record called Rappo Clappo.
Yeah.
So
it's such a great name.
Yeah, it was really Rappo Crappo.
But hello. So there's a kind of, you're a bit like, okay, sounds okay,
No, I didn't really, I mean, I was more about songs, so it wasn't really something I wanted to do. And I probably wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for Tom Silverman, who was starting Tommy Boy Records, and he said to me, you know, I met this guy, Africa Bambaataa, and he has a bunch of groups, and he has, well, 3 groups, Cosmic Force, Soul Sonic Force, and Jazzy 5. And he said, do you want to produce the record? Because I was probably the only producer he knew, young producer who, you know, he knew me, and he liked a few of the disco records. I had a record out called Happy Days, He's Happy, and that got on the radio in New York, so that was sort of another moment. You know, that was sort of the moment where I was taken seriously as a producer, I think.
Yeah, and so, well, let's hear it. We're going to hear a little bit of.
We're not gonna.
No, we're not gonna. Okay, there was some really interesting little bits that you put in the book about this, including, you know, the drum machine aspect, about how you first encountered the Roland 808, basically 808.
Yeah.
This guy just had one and he was
working
it out.
Well, the studio didn't have a drum machine. We knew we were going to use a drum machine, and we looked through the Village Voice, which is what you used to do back then. I mean,
it's like the internet.
Well, it's like looking at through the NME for a drummer, you know,
Yeah.
like, which, you know, used to happen all the time. Yeah. So we found a guy, man with drum machine, you know, and called him up. He said, "Oh, I have an 808." So I went to Sam Ash at Manny's or something and heard it and thought, cool. He brought it in, and then, you know, we gave him the beat we wanted in the program. And then I was like, "Oh, can I program something?" You know, and I did the cowbell, and we copied the hi-hat from Trans Europe Express. You know, we sort of listened to numbers, listened to Trans Europe Express, and got the beats. And then Bambaataa wanted this record called Super Spur, and we wanted that for the breakdown. And we did it, and then the guy, he didn't want to take a check. This is true. He didn't trust Tom Silverman with his check, so he wanted cash. So we never knew the guy's name. We knew his name was Joe, with his 808. And literally, a few different guys have come out and said it was them, but it wasn't Joe. Definitely not.
$25, so that's it.
Yeah, they got. It was very stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also a really nice part of that when you're describing making it is that you're doing the programming, so like you're sorting the record out, and then basically all they just get bored because.
Well, the rappers got bored because
they're just like, we're not needed yet, so they're just mucking around.
They didn't. First of all, they didn't like the beat because it was too up tempo or down tempo. It was sort of if you looked at it at full time or halftime, the halftime beat. So they didn't know how to rap. What they had, it didn't work. So MC Globe took it away and rewrote all the raps. But you know, me and John Roby, because John Roby was a keyboard player, and you know, I was telling him what to do that night, and he came up with some great stuff, and it was amazing. And then we went back in, and it meant to be like 10 hours because that's all the money Tom had to do it. And then, but once he saw what was happening, he put up some more money, and we were able to finish it exactly how we wanted it. When that was finished, it was exact. There's one edit that always makes me a little, could have been a better edit. Everything else on it to me is perfect. You know, we were super happy with that record. You know?
Yeah, that's really amazing because obviously there's certain points if you're making a record that you're not going to be happy, and there's also I know certain artists that they can't leave the studio. They're like constantly twiddling with it. They're constantly.
Well, you couldn't do that then because we didn't have the money. We were limited. It was like 30 hours done. You couldn't go back.
Yeah, which is
so it's good sometimes because it forces you to make decisions and just let it go. which is why nowadays everyone has their own studio in their laptop. You can go forever, so that's sort of what's bad about making records, because you have unlimited time, and I think sometimes I need like a schedule. It's done that day, or it's done with that amount of money, and you got to finish it.
Yeah, it's got to be done and gets out there. So when you're not to get too nerdy about it, but there's certain aspects of that record that are still referred to now. It's like incredibly influential. And obviously you don't know that at the time, but it's one of the things that you're most known for.
There were some things at the time when I did them in the mix. I went, wow, that was really good, and they were all accidents. It wasn't like you could plan it, but I would know that it was good. Like I took the snare out and just kept the clap with the kick drum, and with the bass line. And now, when you hear an 808 record, usually you hear the kick and the clap. You don't really hear the snare that much.
Yeah.
And that when I muted that snare, I knew that was something really going to be cool in the mix. And I mixed it like a dance record, not a rap record. I mixed it for the dance floor, so I did the techniques that were being used in dance records, not rap records. So it was a rap record that was a great dance record too.
Yeah. So you kind of knew it. Which
I think
amazing.
not on everything, but on that record for sure.
Yeah.
I was really confident with that record.
Yeah, and it's funny because I suppose we think, okay, once you've done that, like your life changes, and it does change a bit, but it doesn't. You're still constantly working. You're constantly hustling.
You're still hustling,
Yeah.
and you got to follow it up. How do you follow it up? Then I wanted to start my own label, and I started with Streetwise. So it wasn't like you don't make. I mean, put it this way: you could do that record and then stop and let that be your record, and then but that for me it was a start.
Yeah.
It was really a start.
Should we talk a little bit about record labels? Because every time I read, like in this book, you start a record label, there's a certain point where it's just
they all go bust. Yeah.
Or you maybe do it with the wrong person, or you get involved with the wrong people. It's Arthur.
It's a theme of my life. The wrong business partners.
The wrong business partners. Okay, so like, what do you feel about those record labels now then? Because there's some of them you put some great stuff out.
No, but it was my fault for not being more present. Like with my label, if I wasn't messing around a bit, I would have been more focused on the business aspects.
Yeah.
It's like opening a restaurant, and if you're not like I did, and if you're not 100% focused on it, you're going to lose. You can't do things. Business is half-assed.
Yeah, and throughout. It's not a particular kind of theme of the book, but there are aspects of the book where you're like, okay,
it's a theme.
You're in court.
Yeah.
you started.
Don't sugarcoat it.
You started a great business. You've got a great idea. It's doing really well, and then there's a certain point where you end up in court, right?
Yeah.
It happens a bit.
It happens a bit because I didn't focus. I let things get out of hand.
Yeah.
And then it ends up in court.
Okay, and what
is that?
That's hard. That's difficult.
Well, it's difficult because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
No, I think if I had been paying attention with Streetwise, I would have made sure that they didn't sign some of the things. They were throwing money around like it was going on, style. And we had New Edition, which sold, we sold like 500,000 albums, but we gave people credit, like distributors who you wouldn't loan them $5 and we'd give them 50 grand. Because we were just selling records and we thought, they're going to pay us, of course. And then they wouldn't, and they'd go bust owing us 100 grand, and But I was busy mixing the Rolling Stones and doing all the remixes at that same time. So I lost focus on the label because it wasn't my strength.
Yeah.
But I should have had a partner whose strength, it was their strength,
Yeah. It's very exciting to read about, though, I have to say.
I don't sugarcoat it because, it's part of the life, my life.
Yeah, it is part of the life.
I don't mind talking about it because it's what it is,
Yeah. there's so I mean, it's also part of the hustle, isn't it? So you're doing the label, you're remixing, you're you're meeting all
I
these.
mean, being partners with Morris Levy. Come on, that's cool. Even if you get screwed, it's sort of
Yeah, do you want to explain a little bit about Morris Levy?
You can.
Oh, okay. Well, he's like.
I'm not sure he's really dead now. He might be in Canada.
Okay. Well, if you think about The Sopranos, maybe you could see what kind of guy he was.
Well, it's Hesh. Hesh in The Sopranos is Morris Levy's character.
Yeah.
With the horse farm and
Yeah, it's a tricky person to be involved in.
With him, yeah, for sure. Come on.
Okay. So
Tommy Mottola said the one piece of advice he gave me, the correct advice was, don't go into business with Morris.
And you ignored him.
And I ignored him.
Okay, look. So you end up. I mean, you've done so many things with your work, but you work with some really famous people. You work with Bruce Springsteen. You work with Bob Dylan. You work with so many people.
Yeah.
One of the things that you said that you're most proud of is a track that we're going to play, which is Sun City. When I was reading about that, there are a lot of people involved. We'll play a little bit of it. I'm sure we all know that track, but if you don't know it, it's an anti-apartheid track. It's incredibly important, really. And there's so many people involved. I have forgotten. It's like Lou Reed's on there. I mean, I remember Bono.
Joey Ramone.
Joey Ramone is on there. It's amazing. The list of people that is on it is absolutely astonishing. But it starts with Little Stevie Van Sant.
Yeah.
And he writes it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he wrote the song.
He wrote the song, and then everybody gradually becomes involved. There's so many.
Yeah. No, I mean, we worked hard to get people. I mean, once we had a few names, people followed up, but there were, it was again a hustle, hustling people to do it. And then once they saw who else was involved, it was one of those moments. Actually, when we did the video and everyone started singing who else, because no one had heard the record, the mix yet.
Yeah.
And when they started looking around the room and seeing who else was involved, it was, pretty wild.
Yeah, there's all sorts of Run DMC's in there, Curtis Blow.
Yeah, I mean, it was, Run DMC and Bambaataa, Curtis Blow, and Grandmaster Melly Mel. So it actually helped break down the walls of apartheid in America, musical apartheid, because MTV played it. It was sort of hard for them to say we can't play rap because the beginning of the record was rap. So it sort of came around that same time and then walked that way. But
there's also an interesting aspect which you mentioned, which I hadn't really thought about. So you've got all these different people, these incredibly talented people, and then when you're mixing it, that's quite hard because it's not like you've decided who exactly was going to sing which bit. So sometimes you've got to lift certain people up, bring certain people down, and there's a lot of egos involved. It's quite a tricky.
It was tricky. I mean, there were not only egos but great singers. So there were so many great singers: Bobby Womack and Bruce Springsteen and David Ruffin, Eddie Kendrick, Nona Hendrix. I mean, so we had that was sort of I did a lot of that, picking who would sing what line. Because in the beginning, Stephen was saying, well, we'll have Bruce sing that line and Bono will sing that line, and But then we said, fuck it, we gotta let them sing the whole song and then see who does best. And then we had 30 different vocal performances, and we had to go through them and comp them, which is picking out who sings what and the levels. It was really difficult. And we did have computers, but they weren't like they are now. So it was sort of very difficult. Technically, it was a difficult project. But, then, the upside of having all these artists who created this great thing, and different records got made, different songs came on. People would do performances like Peter Gabriel or Miles. We would have to make them into their own songs, Gil Scott-Heron.
Yeah.
So it went from being a single to becoming like an album with Bono doing Silver and Gold. But this all had like 2 weeks, we had to finish everything at one point.
See, deadlines, that's important.
There was a deadline, yeah. There was a deadline.
Yeah. Okay. So look, I'm gonna from there I'm gonna hop actually to this straight to the next song, just because I wanted to talk. You've been talking about kind of like lots of different very famous people to work with. This one, you're working with Al Green.
Yeah.
There are things to say about it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Messages Love. Al Green. I've tried to make a documentary with Al Green. Al Green is a particular person.
Yeah.
How many takes did you get out of Al Green to make that record?
Well, there was Al 1, there was Al 2, there were 2 Als, and one Al did 3 takes, and Al 2 did 1 take. No, he spoke about himself in the third person. He wouldn't sing that way anymore, it's like that kind of thing. But the thing was, see, Messages Love was the type of record that I dreamed of making, because I wrote a song for a great singer, and he sang it. Now, it didn't start out that way. I did it, and it was meant to be Will Downing, who was another great singer. He did the demo, and then I got him a record deal with Island, with Chris Blackwell, and without playing that song, because I was saving that for my own album. I was doing an artist album, and he was going to be the featured vocal. But once I signed him to Island, and then I went to A&M Records and signed my deal, and they heard Messages Love, and they signed me off of that song, and they said to me, well, can Will sing it? I said, no, because he's got a deal, and Blackwell's not going to let him do it. So then, after a while, we realized we couldn't convince Chris Blackwell. So we had to find another singer. We thought maybe Jeffrey Osborne, but he just had an album out. And Al Green had just done Put a Little Love in Your Heart with the Eurythmics. Yeah. So it took us like 6 months, but then we got him and went in the studio with him and had to sort of, he sang, he did a first take, it was Al 1? No, it was Al 2. No, he sang it and he killed it, but he didn't sing the melody at all. The chorus had to be the way the chorus was, So then I played him Will's vocal, and which I don't know if he really appreciated, but it was the only way I was going to sing it to him, So I had Will, I had the demo, and then he sang it, and he got the melody perfect, but it was dead, and he said, he ain't going to sing it any better than that. And I'm like, who's he? Is it Will? No, I thought, is he talking about Will? That Will can't sing it better than that? And then I realized, okay, I'm on another level here with him. Yeah. Right? And I said, okay, can you tell the first guy to sing it, sing the melody that the second guy sang? And he was, and he did it, and he killed it. And then we had to go and punch in a few lines and have him sing. We did a session I went to that's the other thing. I went to Memphis to work with him, and we had to work at a studio. He wanted to use the Elvis Presley mic. It was a mic like an old school mic, and he would only use that mic. And supposedly Elvis had in Memphis. So we went and we did that, and then I had to punch in a few lines in Boston, and then it was pretty much done. And it just so happened that when we released it, it was right at the time that the Berlin Wall came down. So it became a big hit in Germany, and I mean, my wife and her family, when we got together, that was the only song they knew that I had done anything with. Messages club.
Yeah.
And I think they thought I was Al Green. You know. So it was interesting. But yeah, so we went and toured in Germany and East Germany. I mean, it was nuts. We were there right at the time.
You and Hasselhoff?
Me and he was there at the same hotel. And Al thought the crowd was for him, and it was for Hasselhoff.
There's also a point where you travel to go do the Arsenio Hall show, and you get onto a plane. Do you want to just tell us? This is a complication of Al Green's an unusual character.
So you've experienced it a bit?
A little bit, yeah.
No, because so basically we each had first class tickets to go to the Arsenio Hall show. He cashed his ticket in to take his niece, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they get there, and I'm in first class, and they're like in, I don't know, business or whatever they were in. And he's like, Al Green, 20 million records, put them in the back of the bus. And I'm going, dude, you know, you had a first class ticket. What are you talking about? And then he was mad at me, but he shouldn't have been, because I wasn't I wasn't the record company.
But he'd forgotten he'd done it.
He probably had forgotten he had done it and thought we were just giving him like shitty seats. But then the stewardesses were like, once we're up, we'll upgrade him to first class. We know who he is, no problem. He wouldn't get it. He's so stubborn. He would not go to the first class. And then there was a limo waiting for us. He wouldn't get into the limo. And then when I get to the hotel, I'm told, do not go to the rehearsal. Al doesn't want you at the rehearsal. And I'm going, okay, I've traveled all this way. I put the band together, you know, whatever. And then that night, I don't go. I watch it on TV like everyone else. And the next morning he goes, Artie, where were you last night? Why didn't you come? Okay, Al.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Al.
Yeah. But we made another record, and we made Leave the Guns at Home, and, you know, so we got on. It was just you never know who you were going to be dealing with.
Yeah, which Al you would get.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So look, I'm conscious that you're all sitting slightly in the dark. I'm going to ask Arthur just a quick question about restaurants, and then I'm going to throw it out to you so you can ask questions yourselves. Hello. Hi. You're going to say hi? You can say hi on the mic.
Hi. Hello.
So look, for a long time you didn't come to Britain because you were scared of flying, basically, and then and then you came. You had lots of successes, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which is something that I really remember very well from when we met from the 90s, which is you set up the Elbow Rooms, which is a fantastic bar. You set up a really great restaurant called Harlem. You tried to set something up in Brixton. It was almost like too early, really, like a bit like kind of like 5-10 years too early.
It was another bad partnership.
Another bad partner, which we'll not get into. But these things are very generous, is what I think. Like when I think about the Elbow Rooms and Harlem, they were great places to go. They were really something that we hadn't had at that time.
Well, I was here and I noticed what was sort of lacking in, you know, not in a negative way. I just thought, I have these ideas and I think they'd work in London, you know, and then outside of London, you know. But no, I don't regret those decisions. I think, you know, it was again not having proper financing and also not, you know, like I said, good partners is everything, you know.
Yeah, and also sometimes I think those things are good. They kind of they're like little, you know, fireworks. They go for a bit and then they go away again.
Burn out.
Yeah, they burn out. And also, I just want to get a really quick mention for the return to New York nights. They were fucking great, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were great. They were great nights, and they kind of they
Again,
revitalised a certain kind of a certain area, where basically East London.
Yeah.
They definitely were part of that revitalisation and understanding what a club could be and bringing people together.
Yeah, no, I'm very proud of that party and of Elbow Room and Harlem. I mean, Harlem and that party were my ideas. The Elbow Room was my partner, Justin Carter. But when he told me the idea, I thought, it made sense, and also to bring the food element in. And
it's like a pool hall with food.
Basically. Yeah. So I mean, I always have I come up with good ideas. I'm not going to deny it. It's just a matter of if they're ahead of their time or if they're not financed properly. But we are going to do a return to New York next Sunday at the Shortage Show. So I'll have a guest list if anyone wants.
That's always good with your guest list.
But does everyone know what Return to New York is?
I don't know. Do you know Return to New York out there? Yeah, I mean, people on the front row are saying. So there were really brilliant parties that were mostly held in a hotel in East
Great Eastern Hotel,
which was very glamorous. It seemed like a very glamorous space to have.
The thing it was empty in the week. It was purely a business hotel. So on the weekend there were no tourists in Shortage, right? None. And we got them to give us the hotel basically for free, and we would help them sell rooms. But the first gig we did, we launched LCD Sound System. It was the first gig they had ever done. There's a lot in the book about it. But
yeah, he basically said, I can play, and he's like, he'd never played before.
Yeah, they had never played live, and he put the band together. But we helped other people's careers, and it was an exciting moment to be able to do that, and
yeah, it was fun. Yeah, very fun. Okay, hello people out there. Do we have any questions? Have we got a mic, or people are going to have to shout? There is a microphone at the back. Does anybody have any questions for? There's one there. Hiya.
Hey, hi.
There's a mic for you.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Beat Street was a record that really shaped my youth, right? And I still play it these days, and it still sound pretty fresh. So, will there be a reissue, perhaps a 40th anniversary of the album? Or I heard that perhaps should be a Broadway musical from it?
Yeah, no, I'm working on a Broadway musical now with Nas and with Christopher Diaz, who wrote Hell's Kitchen.
Awesome.
So we got good people involved, and hopefully it will be in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, I've been working on it for 8 years. So
musicals are long.
And the albums, the box set with the third album that never came out, I've been working on that for like 12 years. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to work on it, but I've gotten together with the Belafonte family because we figured out that they actually own the music rights. So it looks like next year, I won't make any promises, but.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Do you have a question? There's someone over here. You have to go all the way around. He's running. Don't worry.
Give a shout.
No. Microphone always good. There you go.
Hello. Is there anything that you wrote that you were really proud of that ended up being stuck in a vault, but for some reason a record company didn't release, and you kind of still niggles at you, but it never got out there?
Good question. There are a few things that I finished. I had an album with Epic Records, and I had a couple of. It's not in the vault because I own it. It's in my vault. But it wasn't released. It was a track with Jeff Beck called "Going In for the Kill," which I'm going to put out. I'm going to be putting out albums the end of this year, next year, like an album from 1985, an album from like around 2000s, and then an album, new material. But the 85, there's 2 or 3 really, really good things, and the 90s album, there's a couple of, there's just great things I never put out, but I've never had, I did a Portion Control remix. I don't know if anyone knows the group Portion Control. And the song was called Conscience Calling. And it's one of my best remixes, literally. It was right after Living in the Box, which was a big hit. And I pretty much remade that record. This record is insane. I only have cassettes though. I have no, I may put that out too, but that is, I remembered that track for 30 years without knowing I had any cassettes, and then when I opened up these boxes of cassettes, it may even be there somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, Roni, what do you want to say? What's your question? Well, come and get the mic.
Can you explain your app?
I explained my app. That's my daughter. Thank you. Well, I have an app, and it's on this new, I don't even know what you call it, a company called My Seat, which is literally a horrible name, but the app provides, it provides a place where you can see all this stuff and get all the music and see the videos. I have a vast video collection of things I shot in London in the 90s, New Order, Mogwai, Ash. When I was working with people, I'd film them and all the concerts. So I'm going to have all that footage.
And would we just find
I would
that
never have talked about it. Thank you.
And we could just go to the App Store and
What you do is you go to the book. This is my genius.
Yeah.
The book has a QR code. Everybody has a QR code, which I actually did at 4 in the morning and got it done. And then, so it has that. And then I got lookingfortheperfectbeat.com, which I'd never had. And I did it like 5 minutes before the book was finished. You go on there. The app on the book goes to the app on the goes to the Looking for the Perfect Beat. When you go there, there's a QR code for the app.
Okay.
So you have to sort of work. You have to work for it. Yeah.
But you'll get it. Okay, great. All right, we've got a question now. Hiya. Is it Mike there?
Hi, Arthur.
Hey, man.
Big electronic music fan here. Surprised no one else has asked this. If you had this is a yes or no question.
Well, there's only been 2 questions. So.
if you had the opportunity to work with the AI version of Al Green, yes or no?
No. No. I mean, I did use AI for a remix, and it was a track I had done with Martin Fry many years ago, like in '89, the same album with Al Green. And I hadn't had the money to do a big symphony orchestra, and AI, I said, could you arrange a symphony orchestra around the track? It's pretty good, you know. But I'm not going to write songs with AI, no.
No. We've got someone here. Do you want to pass it forward? It's coming. There you go.
I've got your Dance Masters album, which
Yes.
is fantastic. I recommend
Thank you.
that. And as well as stuff in the vault, I wondered, are there mixes or acts that you could have worked with, didn't work with, but just logistics or timing or fees or whatever, but there's the artists you really liked would have done a mix on that you
Right.
that we don't know about, the ones that have gone
You
away.
know, it would probably be like one of the Teddy Pendergrass. I mean, it would have been like Temptations, or I mean, I couldn't do those because those stems are everywhere. You know, you could do that now, but anyone current, man, I can't even.
Or over the years, which ones didn't happen because of logistics, you know?
You're going to have to look at the cassettes and we remember them.
No, I don't know. I think I pretty much worked with everyone I wanted to work with. You know, I mean, to be honest, I'm really trying to think of who I sort of missed, and I even did a remix with you too.
Yeah.
That never came out. Oh, that's one that never came out. 3 Sunrises, song I don't even think came out, but I have the mixes of that. They're pretty good. I would have liked it for them to come out with that other question.
Okay. We've got someone over here. It's good for your running. You're getting your steps in.
Is there somebody else's work that you really like? Like, say, for example, I like Steve Albini.
Dave Friedman. He made some great records. He worked with Mogwai, and he worked with who's the other group? That great group.
Flaming Lips.
Which one?
Flaming Lips.
That's the group. When Flaming Lips first came out, that blew me away. Those first few records that they made with him, unbelievable. That totally changed how I thought about producing rock records. And I made a record with Mark Owen,
Yes.
which literally we went for that sound, and it was really pretty good. And that never came out either. So
It's too big for
Mark.
Mark Owen.
No, but it was he loved it. We had a great time working together.
Yeah. He's got an indie soul,
He does.
Anybody else? Okay. So what I'm going to say is we're going to stop now. We've got what is going to happen now is Arthur is going to sign books whilst DJing.
Perfect for the ADHD generation.
Because that's
And I'm going to check my messages.
He's going to do it all, and it's all going to be done. We have to be out here at 9 o'clock. I know that at the back there's somebody pacing up and down because he's very worried that we won't be out by 9 o'clock, but we will. Don't worry, it's all going to be fine.
And we do have books.
There's books at the back to be bought and then signed by Arthur Watts DJ. So let's say thank you for being a fabulous audience. And thank you for bringing
Thank you.
And if you get that.
Again, I'd like to thank my wife and my daughter, and Dan and Ed and Debbie, who have been helping me navigate this, and Luke and you and Caroline, agent. I've definitely forgotten someone.
So you still get the award.
Thank you.
Thank you.